This is about flow, it's fluency. You're inside the performance with the actor.
It's a scene that couldn't have been choreographed and no one knew where it was going to go.
There's this thing, if you have an idea and you bring it and he uses the idea, you get $5.
Welcome back to part 2 of this interview with production sound team Mark Ulano and Patrushka Mierzwa. In this episode, we take a look behind a couple scenes from their second major release of 2019, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. We also discuss how they became the go-to sound team for director Quentin Tarantino and what it's like contributing to one of the most renowned film crews in the business. So now we talked a lot about Ad Astra, and we're segueing into a completely different universe.
Yeah, it really is.
Absolutely. Emotionally, physically, visually, everything I think is... The sound feels so different in Ad Astra than it does in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So we're going to get into a scene right now that is one of my favorite scenes. His hat enters before he does.
Jesus Christ! Fuck!
And we're actually in a trailer here,
We
right?
are.
This
Yes,
is not a stage.
It's
okay.
not. It's a real trailer.
But this scene, something I loved about this scene is it's very dynamic. You know, he's mostly yelling, but he does kind of go down, and he goes up, and he goes down, and he goes up.
Oh, it's all over the map.
Yeah. So how did you deal with this situation? How did you make it sound good?
I had the good fortune of having one of the industry's best boom operators on the planet, you know, and knowing Leo, having done a whole movie with Leo before, and like I said, this is about flow. It's fluency. It's being able as a boom operator to be like the camera operator or the focus puller, or the,
Right.
you know,
You're moving with the actor.
You're inside the performance with the actor. You've crossed through a window of some kind, and you're plugged in. You're just, you know.
Yeah.
And this was, you know, if you look at the physicality of the set, yes, this is really the kind of the hardest kind of work that
tiny,
will happen.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
improv. What's going to happen next, and same for me. You know, I'm dealing with really wide dynamics, and he's dealing with, you know, how much leeway he has in terms of placement, and is the placement going to work, and there's glass, and
Right, because he does break a few things in the course of this scene.
Yeah.
You know, but Tom, like Patrushka, are just phenomenal at just shutting out the rest of the world and being in that moment with everything that they have, all those years of experience, all sort of transform into fluency, and like, you know, they're intuitively engaged, in sync. It's like a synchronization thing, and it's just, you see what the result is. You know, you get great performance, both in front and behind the camera.
And there's a lot of... Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say, it's a scene that couldn't have been choreographed and no one knew where it was going to go. And it's a very confined space. And so the camera, I mean, there were certain people on the crew who had to be there.
Of course.
So along with Quentin, a camera, Bob, focus puller, you know, script. I mean, and so everybody was backed
crammed
into
in a corner.
Cramped is not quite the word. They were pushing against the trailer, so it's not to cut into the frame line.
Yeah.
And it was a simple situation with a Shep's GVC,
MK41
you know, a
capsule,
90-degree, yes, and Tom just rode that ceiling as best he could, floating with the action.
Yeah.
But that's all it took. We couldn't plant. We didn't know where it was going to go when, and Mark wasn't there. So it's one of those situations where to play it simple and be correct was the right thing to do. And
Tom's like the
that.
Garth Hudson of boom operators, you know, in the band, you know, the group, the band.
Yes.
He's like this, you know, he's a master's degree in film history. He could have had a whole academic career as a professor.
Yeah.
And he
just
is, you know, just so film savvy, so knowledgeable. And in this kind of scene, you need to be able to really intuit the frame based on what is going on. There's no time, you know, you're not going to sit at a monitor as a boom operator and, you know, dial this in with that kind of dynamic. And Tom is of the old school. He knows what a 50 millimeter lens does at 8 feet. not because he's looking for a monitor or the finder, or it's because it's in here. It's a fundamental skill set of shot scale based on all the diverse elements that are in motion and dynamically. It's just, and this is a cadre. This is a team of people who many of us just are dear friends beyond the frame. On location, what do? We go, we go get dinner together, instead of just the gaffer and I, Patrushka too. We were friends for over 40 years. The unit photographer, 38 years. The DP, 18 years. On and on and on. And Quentin's 25 years for me.
What was the first film you did with Quentin?
He didn't direct. The first film we did together was a film Robert Rodriguez was directing. It was called Desperado.
Okay.
And it was Quentin's.
Antonio Banderas.
Antonio and Salma Hayek.
That's a great film.
But Quentin came down to Acuña, Mexico to cameo in the bar scene. So he was there for 3 days. That's where we met. And then right after that, we did Dusk Till Dawn, which Quentin wrote, produced, and acted in, and Robert directed. And that's when Quentin and I really made connection. And Patrushka boomed that. She was our boom operator. And it was everything since. Jackie Brown, Kill Bill, just on and on and on, all the films that have happened since. We have the same mindset about making movies,
and it shows, look what a beautiful result you guys are able to pull together. This movie is so, when it was over in the theater and I looked at the time, I couldn't believe how long it had been because it felt like a blink. I mean, it goes by so quickly. You're so immersed in this world.
Yeah, you can invest.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something?
I was going to say that he allows everyone to do their best work. And I so appreciate that.
Oh, gosh, what a breath of fresh air.
There's no jockeying for position. Everybody, if something isn't working, then the person announces what the issue is and everybody figures out a way to make it work.
Amazing. Yeah.
On day one, he will have the crew gather and he'll say, I expect every one of you to have read the script and know what we're doing. And that's a basis of connection with the film. And that's to the third electrician, the craft service, everybody has currency. And in fact, it's kind of a running joke, but he will, it doesn't happen very often. It's happened less in recent years than before, but he has this thing, if you have an idea and you bring it and he uses the idea, you get $5. It's a very high bar though, and he will debate with you whether or not he really acknowledges this. But you get the idea that
he's not angry for you offering a contribution or saying, hey, I see something.
Which a lot of sets are like that. It's a hierarchy that you do not cross the line.
He recognizes the tool of his of contribution by having great people who are great at what they do be there to contribute that, not to amputate that because of your sense of the ego or territory. And good people are very careful, and they measured when they apply that. But that's
we're all engaged.
You're really there. You're invited. And there's a warmth.
We had a good deal of fun on the set. We had costumes and events and things that
That's a Quentin set.
Well, Quentin, yes. But for Halloween, I did a whole display, and I made hundreds of handmade chocolates and cupcakes because someone on the crew didn't eat chocolate, and I had carved pumpkins, and I got the electricians to do some spooky lighting, and the greens people brought in a bush so I could have this backlit, scary, blood dripping vampire thing, and we had an old-time movie projector playing a horror movie, and we did an installation.
It's like a family. I mean, you said Quentin really likes to work with the same people.
You
get to curate that.
It really is a repertoire company, both behind and in front of the camera.
I think curating that environment allows for a certain level of comfort and for that, people to test their limits and kind of test their, like the improv thing is what I'm getting at, right? That wasn't written into the script. That was unusual.
What needed to happen was written into the script, but the freedom for Well, that's first of all. This is not their first movie together. Second, the trust that is, because Quentin is a director and a writer, and one doesn't dominate over the other. He partners with himself in that. Whereas often writer directors are stronger in one leg than the other. He's a total equal balance.
They unleash as much punishment as they have to defeat the other guy. But in martial arts tournaments, I do to win what they do to win. I unleash all my power.
The role of the utility sound technician really changes on a project-by-project basis.
Yes.
And so on a show like Ad Astra, it was a lot of radio miking, and those Apollo suits and all the space suits and those things were my primary concern, and then just a very small amount of booming.
Yeah.
It was exactly the opposite on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where
Double
it was
booming all the
expected.
time.
It's always double booming.
All the time.
So we had 2 full-time boom
So
operators.
you and Tom, then.
98% of the movie was double boomed.
Yep.
And then I
Amazing.
also had the main responsibility of rigging the actors and mostly planting microphones, most of the ones in the car. Tom did a couple of the other kinds of rigs, but everything in the Manson car was me, and in an unusual rig that I'd never done before. But we had 4 actors, and so I just kind of did a ceiling plant.
How do you boom a scene like this one, where they're fighting and they're moving, they're kind of spinning around this lot, and there's so much. I mean,
Well, a fight is choreographed, and so is the boom work. So they're part of the dance. They're doing their ballet.
It was a dance. The camera was on a crane, and Quentin wanted to do it all in one. So it was not unlike a movie that we had done a long time ago, Caine Mutiny Court Martial, with Robert Altman, where it was shot film, and it was full mag takes the entire movie. We started at the beginning, and we just did full mag, and he would orchestrate and choreograph 12 minutes, 15 minutes, and then we did that once or twice, and then we just shot it. So it was always a move. And this was like that, in that Brad was on the back of the trailer, and Tom was there on Brad and I took Bruce Lee, and he does a lot of moving. He goes over to a group of people who are his, he's giving his talk in front of them, then he goes over, then they have a fight, and it was very physical, so we knew we were never going to radio mic it. So it was just a lot of me walking around behind and making sure I was out of the camera as it moved around, and that's how we did it. It was all boomed. It was all boomed.
And Tom, that's the thing. You build a band. You want to get not just the greatest musicians. You want to get the greatest musicians that are good together.
Yes.
It worked out very well with Tom and I. Usually we would look at a scene and figure out how we would divide it. But there were some times when an actor would cross into scenes or dialogue would happen so that we couldn't follow a particular actor, and we'd have to find a crossover point. Or sometimes that crossover point moved.
Right.
If someone was out of a geographic area but they were still talking, we wouldn't know till we were in a take. And so we had that meeting of the minds where we knew as boom operators how far somebody could take it, and sometimes we'd split a sentence. I would know how far he could take it, and I'd be right there, and he'd have to leave.
Wow.
It was a great relationship.
And there's a factor that amplifies that capability, is that Quentin makes sure his actors know that, as far as he's concerned, their off-camera performances are as important as their on-camera performances. He makes it clear, don't hold your punches. I want everything, I don't care if it's not in the frame, you're now interacting. And so all the sound there is to get, we get. If there's motion, if there's action, dialogue, footsteps, whatever, we are engaged in capturing all of these elements and putting them in context to the frame and the scene. But there's no holding back when the camera's rolling on a set.
And we play all the zones.
All the zones.
When we look at, a scene, it's where do each of us work and where do we have to supplement?
The whole piece of cloth.
And are we supplementing with a planter? Are we asking a third boom operator, which sometimes we had to do?
This was so fun for me personally, speaking to you guys about all this stuff. This is my passion and my love, so thank you for sharing your passion and your love with me. You're welcome.
It's a privilege. We're getting to talk about the thing we love most, so it's great.
Thank you. Thank you guys again for tuning in. We'll be back soon with another episode. Thanks for watching part 2 of our interview with Mark Ulano and Patrushka Mierzwa. Be sure to like this video and hit subscribe so you get notifications when new videos come out. Thanks again for tuning in. This is your host, Kim Kylan, signing off.